From the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon, my name is Kyle Collis, and I'm here with your news updates to 12 p.m. Residents in all territories and many provinces, including BC, will hear an alert on their cell phones today, but it will only be a test. Participating governments say the exercise is a part of a scheduled trial of Alert Ready, a system used across Canada to broadcast warnings on radio and TV stations as well as wireless devices. The test will be sent out at 1:55 p.m. today, and for BC involves an emergency tone and a message indicating no action is required. BC's Public Safety Minister Mike Farnworth says the automated system will be ready to warn residents of spring flooding and summer wildfires, but not yet for extreme heat. The Haisla Nation has added 2 pieces of land totaling 120 hectares to its reserve lands on the north coast of BC. The federal government says the addition to the reserve was made possible by an incremental treaty agreement between the Haisla Nation and the province. It says the nation asked for the land to be added in 1949 and will now seek input from members to help decide what the future of the land will be. Chief Councillor Crystal Smith says she salutes generations of Haisla Nation leaders who persisted over the last 70 years to advance the important addition to the reserve near Kitimat. The University of Fraser Valley's South Asian Institute has worked on a new initiative to educate BC residents on South Asian heritage and history. Asta Pandikanan has more on the story.
The South Asian Canadian Legacy Project received a $1.14 million grant from BC's government in order to create resources about South Asian history. Dr. Satwinder Bains, director of the project, talks about what their next steps are.
Our work now is to really reach out to teachers, librarians, administrators, even school trustees, parents, educators of all backgrounds to say, this resource is available, please use it, please implement it as much as you can.
Dr. Bains says it's significant for educators to add BC's South Asian history to academics in order for South Asian children to understand their identity through their heritage. Asta Pandikanan for 1680 The Crow.
And we are now joined by Asta Pandikanan, who is going to tell us more. Asta, why does Satwinder Bains feel the need for South Asian history to be a part of BC's curriculum?
Hi, Kyle. Bains confirms that South Asians have been in Canada for over 100 years. They've been a huge part of BC's agricultural and industrial growth. She also says that it's important for BC to help South Asian heritage children navigate their identities while making it a part of the education system.
And where can people go to find more information regarding these resources?
To learn more, people are able to find these resources through the University of the Fraser Valley South Asian Institute website, or a quick Google of the South Asian Canadian Legacy Project should take people to the direct website. Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you, Asta. And if you want to hear more on that interview with Satwinder Bains, tune in for the Record at 12:20 p.m. today. Now, staying in BC, the RCMP in Coquitlam are asking for the public's help in finding a man wanted on a Canada-wide warrant. Police say they were notified yesterday that 35-year-old Garrett Ryan Bruce failed to return to a forensic institute. They say Bruce may behave in a way that makes him a risk to the public, and anyone who sees him should not approach him but call 911. Police say Bruce needs medication that he does not have with him. Canada's minister responsible for families, children, and social development says the Trudeau government is continuing to work on its election promise, which was to permanently protect a woman's rights to a safe and legal abortion. Karina Gold says she's alarmed by Monday night's leak of a draft opinion by the U.S. Supreme Court that would strike down the Roe v. Wade decision to the right of a legal abortion.
The leak on Monday night just emphasizes why this is so important. And as I said, we have to be vigilant here in Canada because there are 74% of the Conservative elected members in this House who are anti-abortion, right? Who have stated that publicly.
On his way into the cabinet this morning, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau told reporters the ministers of health and the status of women are tasked with looking at the existing laws around abortion to make sure the rights of women are protected both now and in the future under any government. Staying on that topic, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh says the federal government should launch its pharmacare program with free access to birth control, including the morning after pill. Singh says making contraceptives free and accessible is one thing the government can do to improve reproduction rights in Canada.
Having that concrete step in the spirit of our agreement, which is to move forward on pharmacare, would be a concrete way to send a clear message that we believe in expanding access, that we're not just going to focus on a right without making sure people have access to that right.
Soaring wheat prices have been affecting the shipment of products that contain the grain. Many food distributors and restaurant owners are blaming it on greed. Reporter Samantha Holomé has the story.
Pascal from La Belle Pâte always makes his signature gravy sauce in the early mornings. But due to the rising cost of wheat, it's been more expensive to buy and ship products to the store. Chef Pascal suggests it's Canada who is worsening the inflation.
Canada has so much wheat. Oh, there's going to be a shortage of fertilizer, and there's going to be a shortage of wheat, and there is no shortage. And if there is a shortage, they're creating it.
Despite the lack of supplies being linked to the war in Ukraine, Canada, like other countries, will have to find strategies in order to cope. Samantha Holomé, 1680 The Crow.
Alberta has more confirmed cases of the bird flu than any other province. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency says avian influenza has been detected in 23 poultry and non-poultry flocks. That compares to 21 in Ontario, 7 in Saskatchewan, and 1 in Manitoba. The food safety watchdogs say its most recent data shows it has affected an estimated 600,000 birds in Alberta. The Ontario Liberals say Doug Ford's plan to build a $10 billion highway around the Greater Toronto Area is reckless. Liberal leader Stephen Del Duca says if he is elected, his party would cancel Highway 413 right away.
To pave over the Greenbelt and to destroy wetlands and farmland and to not give people living in this region or across Ontario any real relief when our publicly funded education system is in desperate need of investments in building new schools and repairing existing schools is appalling and unconscionable to me.
Ford has promised to build several new highways as infrastructure is a big part of his campaign, which has begun today. The senior hydrologist for the Yukon government says there's a risk of flooding due to record snowpacks in many of the basins monitored by the territory. Holly Golding of the Environment Department says the best case scenario is a gradual snow melting in spring as rapid warming and significant rain would cause possible flooding. She says the territory will be watching water levels during the critical period from mid-May to the end of June as the government works with committees that would be impacted to prepare them for that possible flooding. Golding says cool weather in early and mid-April caused a delay in the snow melt. Beijing has closed 10% or 60 of their subway stations as an additional measure against the spread of COVID-19. The Subway Authority, in a brief message, says that mostly downtown stations were being closed as a part of epidemic control measures. No date has been given for when those stations will reopen. Beijing has been strict on stopping the spread of COVID-19 as restaurants and bars were limited to takeout, gyms were closed, and classes were suspended indefinitely. Residents are still required to undergo 3 virus tests throughout the week there. Now for your weather update, it's currently 10 degrees outside, but all clouds. And get ready for some rain throughout the day as it should be coming in the afternoon and possibly into the night. And get ready for even more rain as it's expected until at least Monday of next week. Those were your news and weather updates to 12 p.m. In a couple of minutes, you'll be joined by Angelina Mintz with your sports updates. Once again, my name is Kyle Collis, and you're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
This is sports on 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon, I'm Angelina Mintz, and these are your sports updates for 12:10. The Abbotsford Canucks are looking ahead to Game 2 of their series tonight against the Bakersfield Condors. The Canucks scored just one goal in the 2-1 overtime loss last night, forcing them into a must-win situation for Game 2. The Condors, who are the AHL affiliate team of the Edmonton Oilers, look to advance to Round 2 tonight with a victory. The Edmonton Oilers look to draw even in their series at home tonight against the LA Kings. Oilers captain Connor McDavid said the team did not respond well to the emotion of playing postseason hockey in front of fans at home.
Yeah, obviously there's lots of emotion. Fans back in the building, excitement. I thought we just didn't handle it all that well. And they got the jump on us, and I thought we did a great job of getting ourselves back in the game and giving ourselves a chance, and ultimately it's one bounce.
Puck drop is scheduled for 7 p.m. The Toronto Maple Leafs look to build off momentum from Game 1 as they host the Tampa Bay Lightning tonight. The Leafs were dominant in Game 1, scoring 5 goals and getting goalie Jack Campbell the shutout. Leafs coach Sheldon Keefe is happy with how healthy his lineup is and the options he has.
It is nice to have options here, like to have both Bunting and Kasha come into the series here. That makes a big difference for us. And then on defense, just the same. With the depth that we have there too, and in goal too. So all of that, this time of year, that's what you want to have. Obviously, we hope that we can maintain that, but at the same time, we feel like we've got support in the event that something occurs.
The Leafs will, however, be without forward Kyle Clifford as he is serving a 1-game suspension for boarding. In other NHL playoff news, Carolina looks to go up 2 games in their series against the Boston Bruins, and the Minnesota Wild look to even their series at home against the St. Louis Blues. Edmonton Oilers defenseman Darnell Nurse and New Jersey Devils forward PK Subban are headline nominees for the King Clancy Award this season. The King Clancy Memorial Trophy is given out annually to the player who best exemplifies leadership and has made an impact on their community. Each team can nominate one player for this award, and the winner gets a $25,000 award to donate to a charity of his choice. The Canucks nominee for this season is Bo Horvat, with his first nomination for this award. Former Nashville Predators goaltender Pekka Rinne won this award last season. The Toronto Blue Jays will look to avoid a sweep at home against the New York Yankees this evening. New York has won 11 straight games, including the dominant 9-1 victory last night. However, Jays manager Charlie Montoyo is hopeful their offense will come soon.
Yeah, we're cold. I'm not going to come here to say we're swinging the bats. We're not, But the one thing is like when we faced Houston and we saw Alvarez struggling and Tucker, I knew when we faced them again they were going to hit. And they did. So that's how I see our offense. Like, okay, yes, we're cold. Yeah, but we're going to get going sometime.
The Jays will send pitcher Yushi Kikuchi to the mound to face off against the Yankees' Nestor Cortez. In NBA playoff action tonight, the Miami Heat look to go up 2 games in their series against the Philadelphia 76ers, and the 76ers will be without their star forward Joel Embiid as he did not travel with the team. And in the West, the Dallas Mavericks look to even their series against the top-seeded Phoenix Suns. More than 100 Canadian boxers are calling on the resignation of high-performance director Daniel Trepanier. They're also wanting an investigation into the sports culture and safe sport practice. In a letter sent to Sport Canada Wednesday morning, athletes say Boxing Canada has cultivated a toxic culture of fear and silence. The letter was signed by 121 current and former boxers dating back to those who practiced in 2008. The BC Lions were able to draft 9 new players in the CFL draft last evening. With their first pick in the draft, they picked up defensive tackle Nathan Cherry, who played out of the University of Washington. Other notable players they picked up were offensive tackle Noah Zaire and defensive end Josh Archibald. General Manager Neil McAvoy is excited about the Lions draft class.
So I'm excited about the guys we were able to draft. I'm excited about some of the future guys. And it's just, now it's up to these guys to come to camp and get the opportunity to succeed and make us better.
The first ever NFL game in Germany will be played next season. The match will be held at the soccer club of Bayern Munich and feature the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Seattle Seahawks. The NFL will also have one game played in Mexico City and 3 games in London, England next season. Those were your sports updates for 12:10. I'm Angela Nimitz, and you're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikki-King.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikki-King. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
Good afternoon, I'm Asta Pandi Kanan, your host for today on For the Record on 1680 The Crow. The month of May marks Asian and South Asian Heritage Month in Canada. In light of this month, we will talk about a new initiative called the South Asian Canadian Legacy Project. This project is a new initiative that serves as a resource exploring South Asian Canadian history, culture, and heritage. This was created to raise awareness of the contributions made by South Asian Canadians to our province. They've worked on 6 different ways for people to engage, for example, a digital archive, a traveling exhibit, and other educational resources. The project received a great deal of support from BC's Premier John Horgan and a $1.14 million grant from the province of British Columbia. It is also running with the support from the Abbotsford Community Foundation. To chat with us today about this project, I've invited Dr. Satwinder Bains, Director at the University of the Fraser Valley South Asian Studies Institute. Hello, Dr. Bains. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me on our show For the Record. How are you today?
Thank you for having me. I'm very well. Thank you.
Can you briefly describe what the initial goal for the project was and what it came to be?
Yes, of course. It started a few years ago. This project ran for 2 years, but previous to that, in 2018 and 19, we approached the government to really look at a comprehensive way of addressing South Asian history, heritage, and culture in a way that would reach the largest audience we could possibly imagine. So as you know, we've been here over 100 years, but there's been a lack of educational resources, there's been a lack of historical record, and if the record has been there, it is incorrect or it is incomplete. So we wanted to take a bit of time. We want to spend, a large chunk of time to really address these issues as a foundation. So this work is not at all complete. It is just a starting point for us to then jump off of and do other initiatives. So we took 2 years of planning, approached the government, and our vision was to create many projects, and we ended up with 6. The most important ones we felt were educational as well as historical record. We wanted to travel the province. The province is really, geographically very wide and vast, but it has significant settlements across the province of South Asian Canadians. And we really wanted to pay homage to the ancestors as well as to recognize that not everything happens in Vancouver, that there is a whole rich history in the province. So for 2 years, we traveled across 7 regions and tried to meet people and ask them what was important to them. And then we hunkered down, approached the government, we got a grant, and we spent 2 years doing the work that you've outlined.
Oh, that's a great segue to my next question. I was going to ask you a little bit deeper on how did you receive Premier John Horgan's support and a $1 million grant from the provincial government?
Yeah, it's a good question. Obviously this didn't happen overnight. We worked very hard with the previous government as well, the Liberals, when they were in power, to really understand. And we did get previous grants in smaller amounts to do the legwork and to go and, travel across the province. But when we got to a critical point where we felt that we had done the consultations and we had really understood the needs of connecting the various communities and cities of BC in a historical record, we approached the NDP government and worked with Premier Horgan's office, and there are some really amazing people in the Ministry of Jobs and Trade, and they really worked hard with us to really understand our goals. And so at the end of the day, when we met with Premier Horgan, he was, well informed. He also was really committed to the historical record. He has this real personal propensity to really reach out to communities. He's very much a ground to earth person and very grounded in terms of historical records. And it was not a hard sell. We didn't have to convince him. It was just a matter of getting in line, waiting for the funding, making the right pitch, committing to doing some really quality work. That was really important to us. So I think it wasn't that difficult to convince him. I think once he was at the table and he was informed, it was I wouldn't say it was a cakewalk, but it was easy.
That sounds amazing. I come from South Asian background as well, so that really warms my heart to know that the NDP is so supportive and John Horgan is so supportive. Moving forward, I know that you got funding from the provincial government, but how did you staff the projects? How did the funds get allocated?
Yeah, it's a bit complicated. So initially, in the first 2 years when we were doing the planning phase, we struck an advisory committee, and the advisory committee was made up of people from across the province who could advise us in terms of the work that we could do, but also support the work as ambassadors and emissaries of the community. So once they came on board, we established them as a project management team, and they helped us create the budget, they helped us make the pitch, they helped us go and meet with politicians and other bureaucrats. And then once we had the money, we came up with a budget that would be allocated to 6 projects. We convinced the government that we were worthy of doing 6 projects in 2 years. In hindsight, I wonder if we bit off more than we could chew, because it was very hard work to get all 6 done in a short period of time. And then, of course, as you said, we had to hire the staff. So we hired a digital asset archivist who brought with him at the time. He left his job later and was another archivist. It's a woman now. But they both spent a big chunk of time really looking at the archive and digging deep and making connections in the community and starting to understand the record, the historical record. Like, where do we start? How do we build this record? So it was very technical, but it was also very inspirational and very moving and very emotional, because people's lives, we actually gave them credit for their lives. We said, you matter, your history matters, your story matters. We want to know more than just, I came on this date, I settled in BC, this is what I did. More than that, we want to look at your photographs, we want to look at your images. We want you to go and dig deep into your ancestral records. As you know, we are about 50 years behind. Some of the people we wanted to interview have already passed on. And we had to get second and third hand records, but still we are happy that we're an oral tradition and that the communities were still passing down stories through their children down to their great-grandchildren and grandchildren. So we're very fortunate that those histories were intact at some level, but we do feel a sense of loss as well. And then we hired, a project manager to help us get everything, the budgets on time, the right hiring. We then partnered with the Royal BC Museum, the BC Labour Heritage Centre, and Open School BC. And we went to them to say, you're the experts, you've been doing this for a long time. Can you assist us? And they were absolutely so kind and so gracious. So the Union Zindabad book that was written on activism in the unions was done by the BC Labour Heritage Centre. And they were the most appropriate group to go to, because they are collecting the union histories of BC. And the Royal BC Museum helped us develop the traveling exhibit. It's something they do, all the time. They also create an outreach kit that's going to go to the schools and the libraries and the galleries and museums. And then we went to Open School BC.
Wow.
I think for us, that was the largest coup, because we really went to the ministry, we went to where the curriculum is developed.
Right. I was doing a little bit of research, and the outreach kit and the exhibit sounded very interesting, because you really wanted this to be out there for the rest of the province to read and educate themselves about, right? For the listeners who are joining us now, we are chatting with Dr. Satwinder Bains, the director of the University of Fraser Valley South Asian Institute, about the South Asian Canadian Legacy Project. Thanks for joining us on For the Record. So Dr. Bains, just segueing into my next question, I've heard that this project also, and you've mentioned that it serves as a resource for educators in BC, like schools and teachers. So I just wanted you to touch on why that is so important to the South Asian community.
Well, needless to say, one of our biggest strengths in BC is the ethnicity of many, many communities, that we have to understand our position as settlers, as immigrants to this community. And the historical record, forget us, the Indigenous record is not complete. So you can imagine we have to, stand in line and hope that our record gets completed. And it was going to take a long time. So we've been, inquiring with the schools and the teachers and of course our children have gone through the school system, so we understand it, why our history is not included, why it's not used in the classrooms, why the texts are not available. And a lot of teachers will say, we teach to the curriculum, we teach what the ministry says we should teach. And so we went to the ministry and said, look, it's important to us that that teachers be given resources and tools that they can teach South Asian Canadian history. And for us, it's the K-12 system that's so important. We feel that children, as they grow up in Canadian society, if they don't see themselves reflected in the history that they read, they will not understand themselves. And identity is so critically important. As you know, as we all your listeners know, in today's society, we are really looking at identity as the key cornerstone of everything that informs that person about their lives. And so for us, South Asian kids, we have a 25-30% population base in some of the communities, and maybe even higher in Surrey, cities like Surrey, but like cities like Abbotsford, where I work, and places like Prince George and Williams Lake and Quesnel and Kelowna and Kamloops. These communities, there are South Asian Canadians living there, but they're not reflected in any of the curriculum.
Right, that's very true. I'm so sorry to interrupt, but Dr. Bains, I wanted to ask you on that. What do you see as the future then? Now that the resources are available, how do you see these resources being implemented?
Yeah, it's a really good question. You can't make the horse drink. You can take the horse to the pond, but they may not drink. So the goal is that the teachers really know that this resource is available. We've done the work, but our work now, the next 2 years, is to really reach out to teachers, librarians, administrators, even school trustees, parents, educators of all backgrounds to say, this resource is available, please use it, please implement it as much as you can. It's still an elective resource, it's not mandated by the government, but it is now a rich and vibrant area of study. And of course, the new curriculum in the school districts in BC require the teachers to really look around their classroom and reflect on who they are educating. So it has to be local, it has to be personalized, it has to speak to the student in the classroom. So I think it comes at an appropriate time as well. So our work ahead is to inform and get the support of teachers and educators as well as parents. We're really excited about letting parents know this happens so they can go to the teacher and say, how can I assist? How can you make sure that my children hear about their own identity? And also for other students to say, I want to learn about kids in my classroom. This resource is not just for South Asian Canadian students. It's for all of us to learn from each other's cultures and each other's backgrounds and historical records. And also, it really speaks to the idea that Canada, while touting, multiculturalism as a legal policy of this country, but how does it then act out in the classroom? How does it play out? It's not just, samosas and dance and having sushi and saying, okay, we're all informed. That's not the point. The point is that's a starting point. We need to go much deeper than that and really look at issues of identity and history and culture and heritage and what people bring to the classroom.
100%. Our 15 minutes are coming to an end, but I wanted to ask one last question. You did touch upon it, but can you stress or can you elaborate on why it's important not only for South Asian kids to understand the heritage, but also non-South Asian kids?
Oh, absolutely. In today's global economy and global world, we have to know each other. We have to live with each other. We have to understand each other. This is an anti-racism tool. This is an anti-misogyny tool. This is a tool for understanding truth and reconciliation. These are resources for all of us to know about each other. We live in our neighborhoods. We have to work with each other. We, in fact, marry each other, create families together. So these are all breaking down barriers with each other. At the end of the day, we're human. We all want the same things. We all want to exist in a peaceful, loving, caring environment. And if we can understand each other and know our histories, it just helps eliminate some of those barriers we have.
100%.
Whether it's linguistic or cultural or heritage, that's the goal.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Bains, for joining me today on For the Record. From one South Asian to another, I thank you for all the work that you're putting in for this project. And I'm very in awe and can't wait to see how this gets implemented in BC.
Thank you for making the time. I do appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm Asta Pandey, and you're listening to 1680 The Crow.
First thing I remember knowing was a lonesome.
What you're hearing is Matt Peterson, better known as Pete, singing and playing guitar to one of his favorite songs. Pete has been making music for over 2 years. He likes to set up at different spots around town and serenade bypassers with his music. Today we join him while he's at the Blue Bridge along the Poco Trail.
Woman, sweet woman, I'm sorry I'm asleep. Never meant to hurt you, I'm begging, darling, please. Won't you just forgive me and leave me in the past? I am just a memory that wasn't meant to last. Don't cry, sweet woman, just dry them teary eyes.
Pete has a full-time job as a carpenter and says despite his busy schedule and lack of sleep, he couldn't be happier as building things and playing music are his two biggest passions. He started playing outside just months after learning the guitar and says his deep love for music comes from his grandpa, who first introduced it to him at a young age.
I've always loved music ever since I was a little kid. I remember I'd be with my grandparents and I'd be up on stage. My grandpa was very musical, and I'd take his microphone when they'd have been having a jamboree or something, a party, and I'd be singing Elvis for all these old people when I was a little kid.
His grandpa was also the reason for his first guitar.
My grandpa got me a guitar he found in the garbage. He gave it to me. He gave me a guitar and I started learning a few chords on it, and then pretty much when COVID happened, I was like, well, shit. I played lacrosse before, and that was my hobby, and lacrosse stopped. We couldn't play it because of COVID, so I was like, shit, I'm going to learn how to play the guitar and I'm going to be a musician.
As Pete gets ready to leave, we asked him how he's improved over such a short amount of time.
Oh man, honestly, man, like I couldn't do it without Lenny, and like my partner, man, he just playing with him, man, has made me so much more better of a musician.
Pete and Lenny first became friends playing on the same lacrosse team when they were younger. Unfortunately, they lost connection with each other for many years. Until one day, they saw each other posting videos playing guitar on Instagram. The two reconnected, got together, and started having jam sessions. They even had a show together this past weekend at Fraser Mills Brewery. Pete explains how they got this amazing opportunity.
Chris, the owner of Fraser Mills, was in attendance at this party as one of the guys getting married, buddies or whatever, and he just saw us. I mean, we're just busking in the park for no reason. No one was there. We were just busking, playing. He came up and was like, "Hey, like you guys wanna come play on Wednesday night at our pub or whatever?" We're like, "Hell yeah, we'll play Wednesday night." And it was just such a nice thing he did.
Since their first show, owners of other breweries have watched them play and asked Lenny and Pete to come perform at theirs. Now the duo consistently has a show at least once a week. We caught back up with Pete about an hour before their next performance. He was tuning his guitar on stage and getting excited, not nervous.
To a lot of people, it seems like such a strange thing to do. Just go out there and just be completely vulnerable in a situation and just be yourself for the public to see. And it really brings people together, man.
As the show got underway, we got the chance to ask the moms of Pete and Lenny what it's been like to watch their sons' musical journeys.
You grow up, you raise your kids, you watch them play different school sports. They go off, they play some little bit of hockey, they play lacrosse, they do this and that. You spend your whole life cheering them on, and then they get to a certain age where they graduate, and it just stops. And I feel so fortunate that I can still come and cheer them on.
Yes, right? And be part of this in their lives. And that's the biggest thing, being a cheerleader, always. Yeah.
During a brief break in their show, we asked Pete and Lenny to describe what music is to them.
Takes you away from everything, really. When I could sit there for hours and I wouldn't even know what I accomplished, but 3 hours have gone by and I just had the time of my life.
It's like oxygen to me. It's like I needed to breathe. I needed to live. It's always in my head. It's when I wake up, when I drive, when I'm at home by myself, there's a record playing all the time. Music's my life. Always will be till I die.
I think it's safe to say that these two will be making music together for a long time. I'm Kyle Collis with Evan Tate, and you're listening to 1680 The Crow.
It's getting to be that time of year again. It's battle time. I start planning all that, but it's also the anniversary of our loss, Zachary Koss, and the anniversary of his last show. And right behind me is where Zach had his last photos taken and where he performed his last show. B-O-R-T-A-O-B-E-R-N-I, this is where I arrived, like Biggie Smalls cord wrapped around my neck. And I sat around that night. Should I go? Should I go? I haven't seen him on stage. Oh, there'll be other times. Should I go? Should I go? I'm pretty sure I could go. And I dragged my butt down here at 11 o'clock when they hit the stage and sat in the back corner and watched it and just could not believe it. I was so pleased. My heart was so full. He was just such a natural performer. Had no idea, hadn't seen him on the stage before. And I thank my lucky stars every day that I came and saw that show. And for battle, I would always encourage, go watch your children play. Go watch them play. It means everything to them. And there's no guarantee you're leaving first. My son Zach was the passenger in a vehicle where the driver fell asleep. A tired brain is just as impaired as an alcohol brain. So having a tired driver shouldn't be an option. And I think it's a huge message for people to be rested or to keep your driver awake. We were invited out to the 5 Acre Shaker in 2014, and it was the first summer after he had passed. He had passed in April of 2014. The money that they made from 5 Acre Shaker, they gave to us, and we didn't know these people. But they had invited us out as family, and we didn't know them, and we came out onto the property, and it still gives me chills. There was a big plaque up in the tree with his birthday and his death day and his name. His band drove out onto the property in his vehicle, and they took the stage and they piped in his voice. And we stood there as family, and we could hear him, and we could see them crying and trying to perform, and all that money came to us. Well, the following year, we're like, what do we do with this? What do we do with this money? I mean, it came with such a positive energy and so much love. And it was a friend again, close friend, who said, I see a battle of the bands for young people.
My name is Drake Shoemaker. I'm 20 years old. I participated in 4 of the battles back when I was in high school, so that would have been from when I was 15 until when I was 18. I mean, me and then some of the people that played in my band, we had never even played shows before. We were just playing guitar like at our own house. So to have this outlet where not only you and your friends, but like dozens of other people who were just like you could come and play music for a night, and we get to hang out and honor each other. Like, yeah, I think that was a super positive thing, and it definitely brought a lot of people in the community into the scene. All different types of music. There was rock, there was hip hop. I saw like folk bands, there was all sorts of cool things. And it's just kind of like, bringing the music together. I knew that it was something that was really powerful for the people that knew Zach and for Kim and everyone who organized it. So even being somebody who wasn't part of the scene when this, tragedy happened, it still carries a lot of weight participating in it years later. And it was still really meaningful, even though I didn't know him personally back in the day. We still took it really seriously and wanted to honor his legacy by doing the battle.
I can't go shopping for his birthday gift or his Christmas gifts anymore. I can't cook a birthday dinner or invite him over, for lunch or take him shopping. I can't give that energy to him or the family that might have been. So this is where I give my energy for him now.
you check. I live from next year to next. Heat from the beat is making me sweat. Crack a lucky, put that taco back. You be ignorant like me, ignorant like me. You be ignorant like me, ignorant like me.
from the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus. This is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon. My name is Samantha Hollomay, and these are your news and sports updates for 1 o'clock. The University of Fraser Valley is opening up a dialogue to educate people on Asian Heritage Month. The Crow's own reporter Ashta Panley has the story.
The South Asian Canadian Legacy Project received a $1.14 million grant from BC's government in order to create resources about South Asian history. Dr. Satwinder Bains, director of the project, talks about what their next steps are.
Our work now is to really reach out to teachers, librarians, administrators, even school trustees, parents, educators of all backgrounds to say, this resource is available, please use it, please implement it as much as you can.
Dr. Bains says it's significant for educators to add BC's South Asian history to academics in order for South Asian children to understand their identity through their heritage. Asta Pandi Kanan for 1680 The Crow.
Cinco de Mayo isn't a Mexican celebration at all, but why do Canadians celebrate it anyways? Our reporter David Nada tells us why.
Cinco de Mayo originally is a battle that the Mexican army won against the French in 1862. At the end, Mexico lost the war, but in the United States, that battle was an inspiration for Mexican immigrants that fought in the Civil War. Centuries later, beers like Corona made Cinco de Mayo a popular celebration in the U.S. Even though nowadays Cinco de Mayo may be considered a marketing strategy, it is a way for Mexicans abroad to share a bit of their culture and connect with other countries. David Nava, 1680 The Crow.
The Minister of Health, Adrian Dick, spoke at a press conference today discussing BC's update on surgical renewal programs. Provincial residents have been facing long surgical wait lines and delayed treatments. Bed and staff shortages were to blame. Dix highlighted the increase of surgeries in the last 2 years, as well as operating hours. The federal government says they've added 7 new initiatives to the health authorities in order to renew and rebuild the system. He ensured that he is aware that people want their surgeries and laid out the province's plans to reduce the wait times. The House of Commons will be meeting today to discuss lowering the voting age for Canadians. The current age to vote is 18 years old. The Cabinet will discuss lowering the age to 16. The Bill C-210 was introduced by NDP MP leader Taylor Bachrach. The Amend Canada Elections Act in December of 2021. If the bill does pass, it means that every Canadian 16 or older will be qualified at the ballot box. RCMP is asking the public's help to locate a 35-year-old man after he failed to return to a Coquitlam psychiatric hospital. Mounties say he may be a risk to the public. Garrett Ryan Bruce was last seen wearing a black jacket, white shirt, blue jeans, black and white shoes, and a baseball cap. Police suggest if you see him not to approach, but to call 911 instead. The Ontario government is turning their heads to a more electric future when it comes to cars. With gas prices soaring, for a greener option looks more appealing to some consumers. Although they may not have a choice soon, the Ontario government plans to ban all new gas car sales by 2035. Out of the 1.6 million cars registered in 2021, only 5.2% of them were hybrid electric vehicles. That's it for the news. Now we transition into sports. The Abbotsford Canucks will play tonight. The puck drops at 7 o'clock. They opened the playoffs with a 2-1 overtime loss to Bakersfield. The team will need this game to win the playoffs as they are on the brink of elimination.
Wins the draw and shoots and scores! Just 5 seconds into their power play, Elias Lindholm rips the puck past Jake Ottinger, and it's 1-0 Flames.
Moving on, that was the Calgary Flames. They won yesterday. The Bruins and the Hurricanes will face off against each other tonight. The Hurricanes are currently in the lead of the series 1-0. The Edmonton Orioles reversed the Los Angeles Kings, as the Kings will be defending their title with the One Series League, and the puck drops at 10. That's been all for your news and sports updates. I'm Samantha Holloway with 1680 The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.